My son-in-law's family declared my daughter passed away during childbirth. When I rushed to the hospital, they blocked me from seeing her one last time. As a detective, I knew something was wrong. They were lying. I pretended to be devastated and left. Then I snuck back, hiding in the stairwell, watching them. What I saw in that hospital room and what I heard that night made me run to my car and make one desperate phone call. I only had 30 days. I need you to stay with me on this. Comment below, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Because what happened next in that hospital changed everything. At 4:00 a.m. on December 15th, the phone rang through the darkness, and a cold voice told me my daughter was dead. I'd been a detective for 30 years. I knew the sound of a lie before the sentence finished forming, but when Preston Hawthorne's voice came through that phone, flat, mechanical, emotionless, my body still went cold. Lydia didn't make it. She hemorrhaged during delivery. She's gone, Elliot. Gone. The word hung in the air like a blade. My hand clenched around the phone until I heard the plastic crack. Outside my window in Newton, snow fell in thick, silent sheets. December, in Massachusetts. The kind of cold that crawls into your bones and stays. What do you mean, gone? My voice sounded wrong. Not a father's voice, a cop's. Controlled. Distant. I'm sorry. I have to go. The hospital needs. He hung up. I sat in the dark for a few seconds. Then I moved. 15 minutes later, I was driving through a winter storm on Route 9 toward Boston. A 45-minute trip on a good day. I made it in 32. Ice covered the roads. I didn't slow down. My daughter was at Massachusetts General Hospital, and something in Preston's voice had triggered every instinct I'd honed over 3 decades. He hadn't sounded devastated. He'd sounded relieved. The hospital rose out of the storm glass and steel glowing under fluorescent lights. I left my car in the emergency lot and ran. ICU, 4th floor. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my 63-year-old knees burning but steady. The hallway smelled like antiseptic and fear. I knew this place. I'd walked these halls on other cases other nights like this. Room 412 should be. Elliot. I stopped. Helena Hawthorne stood in front of the ICU doors like a guard. Preston's mother, Lydia's mother-in-law. I'd never trusted her, something sharp and calculating behind her eyes, but now she looked at me like I didn't belong. She's gone, Elliot, she said coldly. You need to leave. Immediate family only. I am immediate family, I said. I'm her father. She didn't move. Preston is her husband. He's handling everything. There's nothing for you to do. I want to see my daughter. That's not possible. She hesitated. She's been moved? You should go home. Preston will call you about the arrangements. Arrangements, services, moved. Every word felt wrong. The timing, her stance blocking the doors, the way her eyes never softened. When did she die? I asked quietly. Does it matter? It does. 3:47. And Preston called me at 4, I said. 13 minutes later. Her jaw tightened. He was in shock. What room was she in? Elliot, you need to... What room? We stared at each other. Snow hammered the windows behind her. A monitor beeped steadily somewhere down the hall. Finally she said, go home. Grieve. Let us handle this. She turned and disappeared through the ICU doors. They closed with a soft hiss. I stood there for a moment. Then I turned, went back to the stairwell, and walked down 1 floor. I didn't leave the hospital. I went to the parking garage, found a corner spot with a clear view of the 4th floor windows, and waited. Because I'd looked into Helena Hawthorne's eyes and seen something I'd recognized 1,000 times before. She was lying, and if she was lying about my daughter's death, I needed to know why. I didn't leave the hospital. I waited in the parking garage until dark. Then I did what I do best. I investigated. By 7 p.m., the visitor rush had thinned. I pulled a Red Sox cap low over my eyes, turned my jacket inside out, old surveillance trick, and walked back through the main entrance like I belonged there. Confidence is 90% of any undercover operation. The 4th floor ICU had security, but security guards see hundreds of faces every shift. They don't see individuals. They see patterns. I followed a family of 4 through the checkpoint, nodding at the guard like I was with them. Room 412. I'd memorized the number from the hallway directory. The ICU was arranged in a circle around the nurses' station, 12 rooms total, each with a glass door and a sliding curtain for privacy. Most curtains were drawn. Room 412's wasn't. And when I got close enough to see inside, my heart stopped. Lydia. Alive. My daughter lay in that hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that beeped in steady rhythm. Her chest rose and fell. Her heart monitor showed a strong, regular pulse. Not dead, not even close. I pressed my hand against the glass. My vision blurred. "Baby girl," I whispered. "Daddy's here." She didn't move, didn't blink. The machines kept their steady chorus. "Mr. Hawthorne," I jerked back, ducking into the alcove beside the room. Two figures stood 15 feet away in the hallway. Preston and a woman in a white coat. Doctor from the stethoscope. "I need you to understand the situation," the doctor said. Her voice was calm, professional. "Your wife is in what we call a locked-in state. It's extremely rare. She's in a deep coma, but there's a possibility, small maybe 5%, that she can hear and process what's happening around her, even though she cannot respond in any way. 5%. My daughter might be trapped in there aware, listening. What are our options?" Preston's voice was flat, cold. "Not is she going to be okay? Not what can we do to help her? Just options. Right now, we maintain life support and monitor for changes. Some patients in this state recover. Most don't. If there's no improvement within... How long do we keep her like this?" The doctor hesitated. "That's a conversation for you and your family to have with our ethics board. Usually after 30 days, we begin discussing long-term care options or other decisions. 30 days. I leaned against the wall, fists clenched. Preston wasn't asking these questions out of concern. He was asking them like a man calculating costs and benefits. "I see," Preston said. "And she can't hear us. Can't understand." "Most likely not. The 5% chance is optimistic." "Good, that's good to know." "Good." The doctor walked away. Preston stood there for another moment, staring through the glass at his wife. No grief on his face and no tears, just assessment. Then he pulled out his phone and typed something. I should have left, should have stayed hidden, but I needed to hear more. That's when I heard the third voice. Helena's voice, cold, calculated, and absolutely chilling. "We need to talk," she said. "Somewhere private." Their voices echoed down the sterile hospital corridor. Every word was a nail in their coffins. They just didn't know I was the one holding the hammer. I'd slipped into the stairwell alcove when Helena appeared, old habit, from decades of stakeouts. Now I pressed against the wall, barely breathing as they moved toward a small conference room 20 feet away. The door didn't close all the way. Sloppy, arrogant. Perfect for me. "We can't do this in the hallway," Helena said, her voice sharp. "Someone might hear." "There's no one here, Mom." Preston sounded tired, stressed. "There's always someone." A third voice, younger, feminine. "Can we just talk about this? I don't understand why you called me here." "Because you're part of this now, Sloan." Sloan. I filed the name away. Preston's assistant. I'd seen her at family dinners, hovering near him with coffee and files. Young, ambitious, pretty in a calculated way. Also apparently his mistress. Part of what Sloan asked. Helena's voice turned cold and efficient. "After 30 days, hospital policy allows family to discuss removing life support. It's legal. Clean. No one questions it." Silence. Then Preston, "You want to kill her." "I want to end a situation that benefits no one. She's gone, Preston. The woman you married doesn't exist anymore. What's in that room is a body with a heartbeat." My fist clenched so hard my nails drew blood. "What about Elliot?" Preston's voice wavered. "He'll fight this. He'll never agree. We don't need him to agree." Helena cut him off. "We already told him she died this morning. Now we stick to that story. Closed casket funeral. Quick cremation. He lives an hour away. He won't know the difference." "You want to fake a funeral while she's still alive?" Sloan sounded shocked. Good. At least one of them had some fragment of conscience. "It's not fake if she's essentially dead already," Helena said. "This is a mercy. This is murder." Sloan's voice rose. "This is practical." Helena's didn't. "Preston, you have a newborn daughter who needs a mother. Sloan, you can move into the house immediately. Help with the baby. People will understand you're the devoted assistant helping the grieving widower. By day 30, when we actually remove life support, Elliot will think she's been cremated for weeks. No one will question anything." I wanted to charge in. Wanted to put my hands around Helena's throat and squeeze until... No. Emotion gets you caught. Evidence gets justice. I'd spent 30 years building cases. Building cages for people who thought they were smarter than the law. And these three were about to learn what happens when you underestimate a detective. Especially one who's also a father. "What if someone finds out?" Preston asked. "Who the staff thinks Elliot believes she's dead, and in 30 days it won't matter anyway." Helena paused. "Trust me, son, I've thought of everything. I heard chairs scraping. They were leaving. I pressed deeper into the alcove as they filed past Helena, first confident and cold. Preston second, his face pale and guilty. Sloane last, wiping tears. I waited until their footsteps faded. Then I walked out of that hospital and made one phone call. "Kieran," I said to my old partner, "I need your help, off the books, and I need it now." 3 days later, I buried an empty casket, and I played the role of my life, the broken father who believed his daughter was gone. But first I had work to do. Kieran Malloy showed up at my house 2 hours after I called. We'd been partners for 12 years before I retired. He knew my methods, trusted my instincts, and more importantly, knew when to ask questions and when to just act. "You want me to bug their house?" He sat at my kitchen table, coffee untouched. "Every room," I said. "I need everything. Elliot, if this goes south—" "It won't. They think I'm a grieving father who believes his daughter is Ash. They'll get sloppy." Kieran studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I'll need 48 hours. You've got 72. The funeral's Saturday, December 18th. Cold enough to see your breath. The kind of gray morning that matches grief. Except I wasn't grieving. I was performing. The cemetery was small, private. Maybe 20 people, co-workers of Lydia's, a few neighbors, Helena and Preston, standing in the front row like dutiful family. The casket sat above the grave, sealed and empty. I stood at the front, head bowed, shoulders shaking. Perfect picture of a broken man. Helena approached after the brief service. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Elliot." Her voice dripped with false sympathy. I looked up at her with red-rimmed eyes. "My baby girl, she's really gone?" "She's at peace now." I nodded, wiped my face. Let her see the devastation she expected. She actually smiled, small satisfied. She thought she'd won. That evening, Helena called. "We're having a small gathering for the baby, a welcome home celebration. I think it might help you to see Madison, to know Lydia's daughter is being cared for." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Thank you. I'd like that." The Beacon Hill house was lit up like Christmas. Inside, guests mingled with wine and small talk. And there in the center of it all was Sloane Parrish, holding my granddaughter, playing mother. She wore one of Lydia's cardigans. I recognized it immediately. Guests cooed over the baby, and Sloane smiled graciously, accepting congratulations, like she'd given birth herself. "You and Preston make such a beautiful family," someone said. "Thank you," Sloane replied. "It's been an adjustment, but we're managing." Managing. My daughter wasn't cold yet, and this woman was wearing her clothes, holding her child, accepting praise for her sacrifice. I moved forward. "That's my granddaughter." The room went quiet. Helena materialized beside me. "Elliot, perhaps you should—" "She's holding my granddaughter, wearing my daughter's clothes." My voice rose cracked perfectly. "You people are acting like Lydia never existed. Sir, you need to calm down. Get your hands off me." Helena snapped her fingers. 2 security guards appeared. "Elliot is understandably emotional. Please escort him out, gently." They took my arms. I struggled just enough, not too much, as they walked me to the door. "You're all monsters," I shouted back. "Monsters." The door slammed. I stood on the front steps, breathing hard, looking defeated. Inside my pocket, my phone buzzed. Text from Kieran, all devices planted, audio and video, every room. I walked to my car, climbed in, and allowed myself one small smile. When Helena slammed that door in my face, I didn't feel defeated. I felt victorious, because every word they said, every crime they committed, was now being recorded in high definition. On December 28th, Detective Kieran called with news that changed everything. My daughter hadn't given birth to one granddaughter. She'd given birth to 2. "You need to hear this," Kieran said when I answered. "It's from yesterday's recording." I put him on speaker and sat at my kitchen table. The audio crackled to life, hospital sounds, footsteps, then voices. Dr. Simona Archer spoke calm and professional. "Mr. Hawthorne, there's something you weren't informed about during the emergency. Your wife delivered twins. The second baby has been in the NICU. We've been calling her Baby Girl 2. She's stable now and ready to." Preston's voice cut in sharp with panic. "What twins? Why wasn't I told? We tried contacting you multiple times. You told staff to handle medical matters without bothering you unless it was critical. Who else knows? Only the NICU staff involved in her care." A pause. Then Preston lower. "Don't tell anyone else. I need time to think." The recording ended. I stared at the phone. 2 granddaughters. One had been alone in the NICU for 2 weeks, while everyone believed there was only one baby. "Elliot," Kieran said, "there's more. This one's from last night." The second recording began. I recognized the acoustics immediately, the Beacon Hill house. Helena's voice. 2 babies complicate everything. People will ask questions. Why wasn't the second child mentioned? Where has she been? Sloane replied, tense. I didn't sign up for 2 kids. 1 is hard enough. Preston asked. What are we supposed to do? I have a contact in Connecticut, Helena said, businesslike. She's desperate for a baby. No questions. She'll pay $100,000. Cash. Silence followed. Then Preston. You want to sell my daughter. She's a complication, Helena said. 1 baby makes you the tragic widower, raising his child alone. 2 babies invite scrutiny. They'll dig. They'll find out about Sloane. About everything. Your mother's right, Sloane added. It's cleaner. Another pause. Then Preston said, Okay, set it up. I gripped the phone until my knuckles burned. 2 granddaughters, and they plan to sell one like property. Elliot Kieran asked carefully. Training took over, evidence before emotion. Let them set it up, I said. Let them think it's happening. I want every detail recorded. If we move now, not yet. I walked to the window as snow began falling again. They're digging their own graves. What if they actually do it? They won't get the chance, I said. Trust me. I hung up and stood there, my reflection staring back from the dark glass. 2 granddaughters, Iris and Violet, flowers that survived winter. No one was taking them from me. Let them try, I whispered. Let them dig deeper. I felt the weight of years settle into resolve. This was no longer grief alone, but duty. I would protect them with every legal tool, every contact, every ounce of patience I had earned. Whatever it took, I would finish this. For my daughter and for the children who survived her. For 15 nights I kept vigil. While Helena counted down to murder, I waited for a miracle. On the 29th night, my faith was answered. It began December 29th, the day after I learned about the twins and the plan to sell one of my granddaughters, like livestock. I couldn't stop them yet. Not without proof of the transaction, but I couldn't do nothing. So every night at 11, I returned to the hospital. I wore different disguises, a Red Sox cap one night, reading glasses, and a windbreaker the next. Security watches patterns, not faces. As long as the pattern changed, I stayed invisible. I slipped past night staff, took the stairs to the 4th floor, and stood outside room 412. I spoke to my daughter through the glass. Daddy's here, baby girl, I whispered. I'm fighting for you. For your daughters, Iris and Violet. Beautiful names for beautiful girls. Machines beeped steadily. Lydia didn't move. Still I talked. Remember when you were 7 and fell off your bike? Both knees bleeding, crying like the world had ended. Then you wiped your face and said, I'm not giving up. I'm getting back on. I need you to fight now. Night after night I returned. I told stories. I reminded her of her mother, my wife gone 10 years, who loved Lydia fiercely. Your mom would be so proud. She always said you were the strongest person she knew. On January 5th, I felt eyes on me. A nurse watched from the station, dark curls, kind eyes. Her tag read, Meredith Vale. You're her father, she said softly. I see you every night. I tensed. I am. They told us you'd accepted she was gone, that the funeral already happened. She studied me. But you're here. You know something. I know my daughter is fighting. I won't abandon her. Meredith nodded. I'll make sure security doesn't bother you. What you're doing matters. She became my ally. January 10th, I did something I hadn't done in 20 years. I entered the hospital chapel. Small. Quiet. I knelt awkwardly. I don't know if you're listening, I whispered. I stopped talking to you after my wife died. I was angry. But I need my daughter back. Please. My voice broke. If you give her back, I'll never ask again. The chapel stayed silent, yet felt less empty. January 13th, 11:47 p.m., night 29. I pressed my palm to the cold glass. 2 more days. They think they've won. They plan to sign papers, pull the plug, erase you. But we'll surprise them. Then I saw it. Lydia's right index finger twitched. I froze, watched. It moved again. Tears blurred my vision. Lydia, if you hear me, move it again. Her finger moved. Slow, deliberate. I slammed the call button. Meredith rushed in. What is it? She moved, she responded. Meredith checked vitals, examined her hand. Oh my God. You're right. She's responding. Get Dr. Archer. At 1:30 a.m., Dr. Simone Archer stepped out, eyes bright with something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. Mr. Hartley, she said softly. Your daughter's eyes are open. She's asking for you. I felt my knees weaken, years of fear pouring out at once. The hallway lights seemed warmer, the air easier to breathe. For the first time since that terrible phone call, the future cracked open, She wasn't gone. She was still here, still fighting, and I was not alone anymore. At 2:17 a.m. on January 14th, exactly 30 days after they declared her dead, my daughter opened her eyes, whispered my name, and we set the trap. I rushed into the room. Lydia's eyes were open, tears streaming down her face, but she was awake, alive, aware. "Dad!" Her voice was hoarse, barely a whisper, but it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. I was at her bedside in 2 steps, taking her hand carefully. "I'm here, baby. I never left." "I heard you." More tears. "Every night. You were talking to me." My throat closed up. "You could hear me." She nodded weakly. "I heard everything. Preston, Helena, they wanted me dead. They were going to—" She choked on the words. "I know." I squeezed her hand gently. "I heard them too. I've been gathering evidence for 30 days. Her eyes widened, focused on me with desperate intensity. "My babies. Where are my babies?" "Safe. Both of them." I watched understanding dawn on her face. "You have 2 daughters, Lydia, twins, Iris and Violet." 2 shock registered through her weakness. "I didn't know. They kept it from you. And they were planning to sell Violet for $100,000. Fury blazed in her eyes despite her exhaustion. "Over my dead body." "That was their plan," I said grimly. "But we're going to stop them." Dr. Archer entered, saw Lydia awake, and froze. This is remarkable. I need to report this recovery to—" "Wait." I stood, turning to her. "What time are they scheduled to come in today?" She checked her tablet, confused. 10 a.m. They have an appointment to discuss terminating life support, but now that she's— Perfect. I looked at the clock on the wall. 2:30 a.m. 7.5 hours. "Doctor, can you keep this quiet until then?" "Mr. Hartley, I don't understand." "They're coming to kill my daughter. I want them to walk in and find her awake." "Can you do that?" Dr. Archer looked between me and Lydia. My daughter nodded weakly. "Yes," Dr. Archer said slowly. "Yes, I can do that." I pulled out my phone, called Kieran. He answered on the first ring. "It's happening today. Get to the hospital by 9:45. Bring 2 officers. Plain clothes. Room 412. She's awake. She's awake, and she's ready to face them." The next 7 hours crawled by. Dr. Archer kept the nursing staff minimal, told them Lydia was undergoing tests. Kieran arrived at 9:50 with 2 detectives I recognized from my old precinct. They positioned themselves in the adjacent storage room door, cracked ready. At 9:55, we helped Lydia sit up slightly in bed. She was still weak, still connected to monitors, but her eyes were clear and alert. I stood beside her, arms crossed. At exactly 10 a.m., we heard footsteps in the hallway. Helena's voice cold and businesslike. "Let's get this over with." The door swung open. Helena entered first, pristine, in a black suit, carrying a leather folder. Preston followed, his face drawn and pale. Sloane came last, clutching a designer purse like a shield. All 3 held papers. Life support termination documents, I'd later learn. Helena looked up, froze. Lydia stared directly at her, awake, aware, alive. Preston's papers slipped from his hands, scattering across the floor. Sloane gasped, stumbling backward into the doorframe. The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. I watched their faces cycle through shock, confusion, then dawning horror. "Surprised," I said quietly. Helena recovered first, her face hardening. "This is impossible. You were dead." Lydia's voice was weak but steady. "Sorry to disappoint you." Preston stammered. "How long have I been awake?" Lydia finished. "Long enough. Long enough to hear my father tell me everything you planned. Long enough to know you wanted to sell my daughter." Helena's eyes snapped to me, cold fury replacing shock. "You!" I stepped forward, and for the first time in 30 days, I smiled. "Surprised you shouldn't be. I'm a detective, and detectives don't lose. They thought they were smart. They thought they had covered their tracks. They forgot one thing: I had spent 30 years putting criminals behind bars. And this case, this one, was airtight." Helena recovered first shock, hardening back into cold calculation. "This changes nothing," she said. "She's awake, but still mentally incompetent. We have medical power of attorney." The door opened. Detective Kieran Malloy stepped out of the adjacent room, badge raised. 2 uniformed officers followed. "Helena Hawthorne, Preston Hawthorne. Sloane Parrish," he said evenly. "You are under arrest." Preston's face drained of color. "What? This is insane? You're charged with conspiracy to commit murder, attempted child trafficking fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy to violate patient rights," Kieran continued. "I didn't do anything," Sloane shrieked. Helena's glare snapped toward me. You can't prove any of this. I removed my tablet and connected it to the hospital television. Can't I asked. Let me show you what 30 days of surveillance looks like. The screen lit up. Recording 1. December 15th. Hospital hallway. Helena's voice crackled through the speakers. Calm. Clinical. After 30 days, we pull the plug. Legal. Clean. Preston replied, What about Elliot? Helena said, We tell him she's been cremated. I paused the clip. You planned my daughter's death while she was 10 feet away, fighting to live. Preston stared at the floor. Recording 2. December 18th. Beacon Hill residence. Video footage played. A party. Sloane wore Lydia's cream cardigan, the one I'd given her years ago. She held Madison smiling. A woman said, You and Preston make a beautiful family. Sloane replied, Thank you. It's been an adjustment. Adjustment, I repeated. You moved into her home, wore her clothes, held her child, and accepted praise while she lay in a coma. Sloane sobbed. I didn't know. Recording 3. December the 28th. Hospital consultation room. Dr. Archer spoke. Your wife delivered twins. The second baby is in the NICU. Preston asked, Who else knows? Only staff. Don't tell anyone Preston cut in. I stopped the recording. You hid your own daughter because she was inconvenient. Recording 4. Same day. Beacon Hill living room. Helena's voice returned. I have a contact in Connecticut. $100,000. Cash. Preston asked, You want to sell my daughter? She's a complication, Helena replied. A pause. Then Preston said, Okay, set it up. One officer shook his head. You were going to sell my 6-day-old granddaughter, I said. This is entrapment, Helena snapped. No, I replied calmly. Lydia installed security cameras months ago. She owned the house. The recordings are legal. You just forgot they existed. I tapped the tablet again. Bank records show Preston withdrew $50,000 from Lydia's accounts while she was unconscious. That was for the baby. Phone records show Helena made 47 calls to a Connecticut buyer. She's already in custody. Helena's face went pale. We also have sworn statements from hospital staff describing your behavior and disregard for Lydia's life. I looked at them. I've built cases for 30 years. I know how to make evidence stand, and this one will. Preston collapsed into a chair. Mom, you said it would work. Shut up, Helena screamed. Sloane sobbed uncontrollably. I didn't know about selling the baby, I swear. Silence, Helena barked. Detective Malloy stepped forward and read their rights. Helena turned on me. You think you've won? Beforiled? Lydia's voice cut through the room. Weak, clear. You wanted me dead, she said, so you could take my life, my children, my home. Tears streamed down her face. I heard everything, every lie, every plan. She took a breath. I'm alive, and you'll remember that in prison. I placed my hand on her shoulder. You underestimated a father's love, I said. That was your mistake. The officers cuffed them. Preston didn't resist. Sloane sobbed. Helena stayed silent. As they reached the door, Helena turned back. Her hatred was gone. Only realization remained. The door closed. The room was quiet. I looked at my daughter. Alive. It's over, I said softly. And for the first time it truly was. That afternoon, Nurse Meredith brought my granddaughters to meet their mother for the first time. 3 months later, I watched justice being served in a way that made every moment of those 30 days of hell worth it. After the arrests, after the chaos faded, Dr. Archer approached quietly. I think there are 2 little girls who need to meet their mother. I nodded, unable to speak. 30 minutes later, Nurse Meredith Vale wheeled 2 isolettes into the room. Inside slept 2 tiny babies, identical down to the dimples in their chins, unaware of how close their lives had come to being taken. Lydia gasped, My girls! My girls! The nurses carefully lifted them first, one then the other, and finally placed them together in Lydia's arms. She held Iris and Violet against her chest, sobbing openly, kissing their soft heads. I'm your mama, she whispered. I'm here. I stood beside her, tears falling. They're perfect. Just like you. You saved them, Lydia said. You saved all of us. I touched one tiny hand. I named them while you were asleep. Iris for wisdom, Violet for strength, flowers that survive winter. Perfect, she whispered. Iris curled her fingers around mine. Violet nestled closer to her mother. For the first time in 30 days, the room felt peaceful. 3 months later, April 15th, 2025, we stood inside Suffolk County Courthouse, beneath a gray Boston sky. The courtroom was full media observers, strangers drawn by the story, a detective father, a nearly murdered daughter, grandchildren almost sold. Lydia sat beside me stronger now after months of therapy. Judge Roland Blackwell presided, his face stern and unmoved. The evidence left no room for doubt. Will the defendants rise? Helena stood rigid. Preston looked broken. Sloane trembled. Preston Hawthorne, the judge said, "You are found guilty on all counts. 18 years in state prison." Preston swayed. Helena Hawthorne, the judge, continued, "Mastermind of these crimes. 15 years without parole." Helena did not react. Sloane perish. 8 years. Sloane sobbed. The judge added restraining orders, asset forfeiture, and the permanent termination of Preston's parental rights. The gavel struck. Justice was final. Outside, reporters shouted questions. "How do you feel?" I guided Lydia to the car. Justice was served. Life moved forward. Lydia recovered steadily. She moved into my guest house. We rebuilt her life piece by piece. We co-wrote a book, The Father Who Never Stopped Fighting. It became a bestseller. Every dollar went into trusts for Iris and Violet, along with the proceeds from the Beacon Hill house. Lydia began speaking publicly about patients' rights and protecting the vulnerable. She filed for divorce. Preston signed from prison. And I helped raise my granddaughters. Midnight feedings, diapers, lullabies. At 63, I discovered the greatest job of my life. Summer came. One warm Saturday, we spread a quilt beneath an oak tree in Boston Common. Iris and Violet sat upright now, 6 months old, curious and bright. Iris studied a blade of grass. Violet laughed at a butterfly. Lydia sat nearby, writing in her journal, peaceful. I tickled Violet's belly. She laughed pure and bright. "Your mother's a fighter," I whispered, "and your grandpa never learned to quit." Lydia joined me. "You saved us." "That's what fathers do," I said. "We fight, we protect." She leaned against me. We saved each other. I lifted both girls, one in each arm, their wide eyes reflecting the golden sky. "They tried to bury us," I said softly. "But love doesn't die." The sun set over Boston as I held my granddaughters, and my daughter sat beside me. We had faced evil, and we had won. Because love, real fierce love, always wins. So that's my story. That's how a grandfather became a detective one last time, how 30 days of hell became the fight of my life, and how God gave me back everything I thought I'd lost. Looking back now, I see his hand in every moment. When I found Lydia alive that first night, that was God. When my finger twitched on day 29, that was God answering my prayers in that empty chapel. When everything came together at exactly the right moment, that wasn't luck. That was divine timing. These grandpa stories we tell aren't just entertainment. This true story taught me that evil exists, but so does grace. So does redemption. So does the power of a father who refuses to give up. If you're reading this and you're in a situation where something feels wrong, trust your instincts. Don't be like the people who saw the signs and stayed silent. Don't be like those who chose comfort over courage. Be the person who asks questions, who digs deeper, who fights when everyone else walks away. I've learned that God places us exactly where we need to be, even in the darkest moments. He gave me 30 years as a detective, not just to solve crimes, but to prepare me for the one case that mattered most, saving my daughter and granddaughters. This true story isn't just mine. It belongs to every parent, every grandparent who's ever had to fight for their family. These grandpa stories remind us that love is stronger than evil, that hope survives even in coma-induced darkness, and that justice, real justice, is worth fighting for. To Iris and Violet, when you're old enough to read this, your mother is the strongest person I know. And your grandfather? I'm just an old man who loved you before you took your first breath. That's what the best grandpa stories teach us. Never give up on the people you love. Never stop fighting. And always, always trust that God has a plan, even when you can't see it. If this true story touched your heart, drop a comment below telling me what you'd do in my situation. Share this with someone who needs to hear that miracles are real. And subscribe to this channel because every story we share might save a life. Love always wins. Remember, after drinking the tea my daughter-in-law gave me, my entire body suddenly went stiff. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't scream. As I lay there gasping for air in the darkness, she opened the door and let a stranger into my room. I heard them whispering, "Make it look natural." My mind was screaming, but my body was a prison. They thought I was unconscious. They thought I couldn't hear, but I heard everything. And what they said next would change my life forever. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to know, where are you watching this from? Right now. Drop your location and the time below. I'm grateful you're here because what I'm about to share could save someone's life. I couldn't have known that the cup of tea would change everything. It was a Monday night, and I was sitting alone in my son's living room in Portland. Christopher was away on business, and I'd spent the day unpacking boxes, what little I'd brought from Salem after selling my house. At 67, moving in with your kid feels like admitting defeat, but Bethany had insisted I stay while I looked for a smaller place. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I was tired. Bone-tired, the kind that settles deep after a long day of physical work, even though I'd been retired from contracting for 2 years. That's when Bethany appeared in the doorway carrying a steaming mug. "Dad," she said, her voice softer than usual, "you've seemed exhausted. I made you chamomile tea. It'll help you sleep." I took the cup. The gesture surprised me. My daughter-in-law had never been particularly warm. But maybe I'd been wrong about her. Maybe Dorothy's concerns were just a dying woman's paranoia. I drank the tea. All of it. 20 minutes later, I felt the tingling in my legs. At first, I thought it was just circulation. I'd been sitting too long. I shifted on the couch, but the sensation spread. My feet went numb, then my calves. I tried to stand. My legs buckled, and I collapsed back onto the couch. My hands were going numb now, too, fingers slow and clumsy when I tried to move them. "What the hell?" I whispered, but my voice came out weak, barely audible. I tried again to call for Bethany to shout for help. Nothing, just a rasp. By 11 o'clock, I couldn't move at all. My body had become a cage. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my mind screaming, while my muscles refused every command. I couldn't even blink properly. All I could do was breathe shallow, labored breaths, and listen to my heart hammering in my chest. The front door opened. "Thank you for coming, Gregory." Bethany's voice from the hallway, sweet and concerned. "He just collapsed. I'm so worried." A man's voice responded, "Let me take a look." Footsteps entered the living room. A man in his 40s knelt beside me, pressed 2 fingers against my throat. I stared up at him, desperate, trying to communicate with my eyes. "Help me, please." He leaned closer, studying my face. Then he muttered, barely audible, "This dosage is too strong." Dosage. The word hit me like a punch. "Is he okay?" Bethany asked from somewhere behind him. "His pulse is slow but stable. Let him rest." The man Gregory stood and left. Bethany turned off the lamp and walked away. I lay in complete darkness. Hours passed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't close my eyes. My mind raced. Stroke, heart, attack. But I was healthy. I'd always been healthy. I'd built houses with my own hands for 40 years. This wasn't natural. At 2 in the morning, the door opened again. Bethany moved through the darkness without turning on a light. I couldn't turn my head, but I saw her shadow approach. She placed her hand on my chest, checking if I was still breathing. Then she leaned down close enough that I could smell her perfume, and whispered, "Still breathing. Good. Can't have you die before Friday. Just need you quiet." She straightened and walked away. The door closed. I lay there trapped in my own body and understood. My son's wife had poisoned me. And whatever she was planning for Friday, I was supposed to be too helpless to stop it. The night dragged endlessly. I couldn't sleep, couldn't close my eyes, couldn't escape into unconsciousness. All I could do was lie paralyzed in the darkness and think. I thought about Dorothy. My wife had been gone for 2.5 years, yet lying there, unable to move, her absence felt like a physical wound. She would have known something was wrong. She always did. Dorothy had a way of reading people I never mastered. She'd even tried to warn me about Bethany once in those last months before cancer took her. "I don't trust her." "Henry," she'd whispered in the hospital. "The way she looks at our house. The way she asks about your retirement money. Just be careful." I'd brushed it off as paranoia, blamed the medication, insisted Bethany was family. Now poisoned on my son's couch, I finally understood. Dorothy had seen what I refused to see. I'd ignored her because I wanted to believe in family. I wanted to believe my son had married a good woman. I had been terribly wrong. Outside, the skies shifted from black to gray. Dawn crept over the windows. My body still wouldn't obey me, but my mind raced. What is she planning? Why Friday? What happens if I can't move by then? At 6:30, I heard the front door open. Dad Christopher's voice, tired. "Bethany, I'm home early. The meeting got canceled. My son, my only child. If I could just speak, just move, just signal." But nothing happened. Christopher, Bethany called, hurrying downstairs. "You're home. How was the trip?" "Short. Is Dad still up? His car's in the driveway. He had an episode last night." Their voices approached the living room. I stared at the ceiling, begging Christopher to notice something was wrong. An episode, he asked sharply. What kind? He collapsed. I called Gregory, my friend, who used to be a paramedic. He checked your father, said he's stable, just exhausted. Shouldn't we take him to a hospital? No. Bethany's tone hardened. Christopher, we talked about this. The guardianship hearing is Friday. We just need to keep him comfortable until then. Once it's finalized, we can get him proper care. Guardianship. The word slammed into me. I still don't understand why we need guardianship, Christopher murmured. Your father is 67, Bethany said, patronizing. He sold his house 2 months ago. He got that IRS letter about unreported income. He's declining. We're protecting him and ourselves from his poor decisions. The lawyer already filed everything. Once the court grants us guardianship, we can manage his finances. A quiet pause, then Christopher sighed. You're usually right. I know. Now let's let him rest. Their footsteps faded. They went upstairs. At 7, they left for work. Christopher called out a goodbye. Bethany didn't. Instead, she approached the living room door. It shut. A lock clicked from the outside. She'd locked me in. Terror mixed with rage. Guardianship. Friday. 3 days. The picture was finally clear. At 7:30, something changed. My left index finger twitched. Small but mine. Again slightly more. The drug was wearing off. Hope. I focused, forcing movement back into my hand. Slow, weak, but real. 72 hours. I had to get out. I had to stop her. By 8 o'clock Tuesday morning, I could curl my fingers. The movement was slow and clumsy, like my hands belonged to someone else, but it was something. Lying on the guest bed where Bethany had moved me after locking the door from the outside, I tested each muscle group one by one. Toes, ankles, wrists. My body was waking up inch by inch. Guardianship hearing, Friday, 72 hours. The words burned in my mind like a countdown. By 9:15 I could sit up. My legs trembled when I stood, but I could move. I crossed the small bedroom and tried the door. Locked, as expected. I turned to the window. It wasn't locked. I pushed the frame up slowly, listening for any sound. Nothing. Bethany and Christopher had left for work an hour earlier. I was alone. I looked down an 8-foot drop. Far enough to risk injury, but I had no choice. I climbed through, lowering myself before letting go. My knees buckled when I hit the ground, pain shooting through my legs. I stayed there in the flower bed until my body steadied. Then I heard the low rumble of an engine pulling into the driveway. She's back. Panic surged. I scrambled along the side of the house, staying low, heart hammering. I slipped through the back door and moved quickly through the kitchen into the living room. That's when I saw a business card on the coffee table, half hidden beneath a magazine. Gregory Stone, Private Investigations, a Portland number printed beneath the name. I grabbed the card and shoved it in my pocket just as the front door rattled. I didn't hesitate. I ran back through the kitchen, out the back door, and around to the driveway where Christopher's truck was parked. The keys were in the cup holder, exactly where I remembered. I turned the ignition. The engine roared to life. Behind me, the front door opened. I didn't look back. I reversed out of the driveway, hands shaking. In the mirror, I saw Bethany on the porch phone pressed to her ear. I drove south on I-5 toward Salem home. For 3 weeks, I'd been living under Bethany's false kindness and calculated lies, but Salem was mine. Dorothy and I had built a life there for 40 years. If I was going to fight back, I needed to do it from home. By 11, I was parked in front of Frank Peterson's house. Frank had been my neighbor for 20 years, a retired teacher who helped me rebuild my deck after Dorothy passed. If anyone would help me, it was him. He opened the door before I knocked, eyes widening. Henry. You look awful. What happened? I need to use your phone, I said, and I need you to trust me. He stepped aside. At his kitchen table, I pulled out the business card and dialed the number. Gregory Stone answered on the second ring. It's Henry Walsh, I said. We need to talk. Now. A pause. How did you get this number? You left your card at my son's house, and you knew the dosage was too strong. So choose Gregory, help me expose the truth, or keep working for the woman who poisoned me. Silence. Then I'll meet you in Salem. 30 minutes. I hung up. Frank stared at me. I'll explain everything I said, but first coffee. 30 minutes until Gregory arrived. I wasn't alone anymore. Gregory Stone pulled into Frank's driveway at 11:45, driving a worn dark gray sedan. I watched through the kitchen window as he stepped out, straightened his jacket, and approached the front door with the deliberate movements of someone used to observing more than being seen. Frank let him in. Gregory entered the kitchen and paused when he saw me at the table. After a moment, he sat across from me. "You look better than you did last night," he said. "That's a low bar," I replied. He nodded, studying me closely. "I need to tell you something. 3 weeks ago, your daughter-in-law hired me to investigate you. She claimed you were forgetting things, behaving erratically, possible dementia. She wanted documentation to support a guardianship petition. Anger rose in my chest, but I kept steady. "And what did you find?" "Nothing," Gregory said, leaning back. "I followed you. Watched you run errands, meet your accountant, have lunch with Frank. I checked your bank activity, credit score, medical records. You're sharper than most men half your age. There was nothing wrong with you. So why didn't you tell her that?" "I did. 2 weeks ago. She didn't like the answer." He glanced down. "That's when she stopped asking about your mental state and started wanting evidence of physical decline. The pieces aligned. She couldn't prove incompetence, so she decided to create it." "Exactly." Gregory pulled out a small notebook. "I didn't realize it until last night. When I saw you on that couch, I thought, stroke. But your vitals didn't match. Slow pulse, delayed pupil response, no muscle tone but steady breathing, classic sedation." Frank, still by the sink, muttered, "Jesus, she drugged him." "More than that." Gregory turned back to me. "I reviewed your financial records again. There were large withdrawals from your savings over 6 months. 20,000 here, 35 there. Total of about 127,000. The number hit hard. I didn't make those withdrawals. "I know. The signatures don't match. I compared them to your bank signature. Close but forged." He tapped his notebook. "That's why you got the IRS letter, isn't it? She withdrew the money but didn't report it. The tax liability landed on you." I remembered the letter, $78,500 owed on income I'd never received. I had been struggling with the IRS for months. "She's been stealing from me," I said quietly. "And when I started asking questions, she decided to remove me." "Not remove," Gregory said. "Control. With guardianship, she controls your assets, your house, your retirement, everything. You'd have no legal power." "The hearing is Friday," I said. He nodded. "We need evidence fast. Bank records with forged signatures, statements showing the withdrawals. And if we can get a blood test proving sedatives, even better." I studied him. "Why help me?" "You could have walked away." He hesitated. "Because I watched her poison you and didn't stop it? I didn't know what I was seeing, but I'm not making that mistake again." Frank set coffee in front of us. "So what's the plan?" Gregory didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing: my daughter-in-law was trying to erase me. And together we had 70 hours to prove it. I need to go home first," I told Gregory. "There's something I need to find." He didn't ask what. He just nodded and drove me to my house. The neighborhood looked exactly the same as when I'd left 3 weeks earlier. Quiet lawns, still streets, the maple tree Dorothy planted turning orange. I'd once told her it'd never grow. I'd been wrong about many things. Inside, the air was stale dust, resting on everything. I walked through the living room, past the couch, where Dorothy and I watched the news, and into our bedroom. Gregory stayed by the door. I knelt beside the bed and pulled out the old Christmas cookie tin Dorothy kept under the mattress. Inside were the things she'd considered important: cards, photos, letters, and one envelope with my name in her handwriting. I sat and opened it. "My dearest Henry, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I need to tell you something I should have said sooner. I don't trust Bethany. She doesn't love Christopher. She loves what he and you can give her. I've seen how she looks at you when she thinks no one notices, not warmly, but calculatingly, like you're something in her way. I tried to warn Christopher once, and he accused me of being paranoid. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm wrong. But if something happens, if she tries to take control or make you doubt yourself, fight back. Don't let her erase you. You're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone make you invisible. I will always love you. Dorothy." My hands shook as I read it again, hearing her voice in every word. She'd known even 2.5 years ago. "You okay?" Gregory asked softly. "She tried to warn me," I said, "and she was right." "We should go," he said, "to the bank." Bank of America was busy that afternoon. After a short wait, a manager named Susan brought us into her office. I asked for withdrawal records, signature copies, and any security footage. As I explained, her expression shifted. "Mr. Walsh, if you're alleging fraud, we'll need to file a formal report." "I'm alleging fraud." For 2 hours she pulled up every transaction since March. 7 withdrawals, 15 to 35,000 each, all made in person by someone presenting my ID and signing my name. "We have footage," Susan said. She turned the monitor toward me. "June 19th. In the grainy video, A woman approached the teller, smiled, handed over documents, and left with a cashier's check for $22,000. Bethany, I need certified copies of everything I said, and a notarized statement. I'll have it ready shortly. By 4:30, Gregory and I sat in his car with a folder full of evidence slips with forged signatures, statements, and the footage. We need a lawyer, he said. I know. That night at Frank's house, I sat alone at the kitchen table rereading Dorothy's letter. Don't let anyone make you invisible. I pressed it to my chest. I would fight, and Bethany Walsh would answer for every lie. Wednesday morning, I woke on Frank's couch with sunlight pouring in and the smell of coffee drifting through the house. My body still hurt, but my mind felt clearer than it had in weeks. Gregory picked me up at 8:30 and we drove to a small law office in downtown Salem, wedged between a cafe and a real estate agency. The sign read, Rachel Bennett, Attorney at Law, Elder Rights and Estate Planning. Rachel greeted us in the lobby. She looked to be in her early 50s, sharp-eyed gray hair in a neat bun, and shook my hand firmly. Mr. Walsh, she said, Gregory told me the basics. Let's talk. Her office was lined with books and certificates. She motioned for me to sit, poured water, opened a legal pad, and said, Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. So I told her everything. The tea, the paralysis, Bethany's whispered threat at 2 a.m, Christopher's part in the conspiracy, the guardianship hearing set for Friday, Gregory's investigation, the forged signatures, the stolen $127,000, and Dorothy's letter. Rachel listened silently, then asked for the evidence. I handed her the folder from the bank, the disc with security footage, and Dorothy's letter. She reviewed everything for 20 minutes, taking notes and checking dates. Then she looked up. This is elder abuse, she said. Financial exploitation, attempted guardianship fraud, and likely poisoning. If we handle this correctly, Bethany won't just lose the petition, she'll be facing criminal charges. What do we need to do? I asked. Rachel turned to a clean page. 5 steps. First, I file an emergency response contesting the petition and request an independent competency evaluation. Second, we present the fraud evidence withdrawals, forged signatures footage. Third, we show Bethany's financial conflict of interest and push to disqualify her as petitioner. Fourth, we request a protective order, barring her from contacting you or accessing accounts. Fifth, we ask the court to refer the case to law enforcement. Can you do all that by Friday? Gregory asked. I can file the response today, Rachel said. The rest depends on the judge. But if Henry appears in court Friday morning, coherent and competent, Bethany's case collapses. For the first time in days, I felt something close to hope. What do I need to do? Practice, Rachel said. Thursday morning, she put me through a mock competency exam. Sitting across from me, she played the judge, firing questions. Full name and date of birth. Henry James Walsh, October 7th, 1957. Current address. 42 Maple Street, Salem, Oregon, since 1983. Financial situation. I explained my pension savings, stolen funds, and the value of my home. Rachel nodded. Explain why you're here. Because my daughter-in-law poisoned me, forged my signature, stole my money, and is trying to have me declared incompetent. I'm here to stop her. Rachel smiled. Perfect. By Thursday evening, everything was ready. Rachel filed the response, Gregory completed his report, and I memorized my testimony. Tomorrow, Rachel said. 9 o'clock. Multnomah County Courthouse. I won't be late. Bethany expected an easy victory. She had no idea I'd be there waiting. Friday morning, I stood outside the Multnomah County Courthouse, with Rachel on my left and Gregory on my right. The concrete and glass building towered over us. Built to make people feel small, but I didn't. I felt ready. You remember what we practiced? Rachel asked. Every word. Good, let's go. We passed through security, took the elevator to the 3rd floor, and stopped outside courtroom 6. Through the small window, I saw Bethany sitting with her lawyer, Martin Caldwell. She looked calm, certain she'd already won. She hadn't. Rachel opened the door and we entered. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, wood-paneled walls and benches, a raised bench for the judge. Bethany was facing forward, speaking quietly. She hadn't noticed me? Then she turned. The color drained from her face. Her hands gripped the table. Martin followed her gaze and frowned in confusion. I walked down the aisle and stopped at the respondent's table. Sedated, helpless, locked in your guest room, I said loudly. Not anymore, Bethany. Not ever again. She stared at me like I wasn't real. Martin cleared his throat. Your Honor isn't here yet, Mr. Walsh. You should. I'm exactly where I should be, I said. Rachel set down her briefcase and arranged her documents. Gregory took a seat behind us. Moments later, a bailiff entered. All rise. The Honorable Judge Helen Morrison presiding. We stood. Judge Morrison's silver hair sharp eyes took her seat and examined the file. This is a guardianship petition filed by Bethany Walsh regarding Henry James Walsh, alleging incapacity. She looked at me. Ms. Bennett, I wasn't aware Mr. Walsh would attend. Mr. Walsh was unlawfully prevented from attending, Your Honor, Rachel said. We filed an emergency response. He is fully competent and contests the petition. Martin stood. Your Honor, my client was informed Mr. Walsh was unable to attend due to his condition. I'm right here, I said, and there's nothing wrong with my condition. The judge raised a hand. Mr. Caldwell, sit. Mr. Walsh, I'll ask you a few questions. Yes, Your Honor. State your full name and date of birth. Henry James Walsh, October 7th, 1957. Current address. 42 Maple Street, Salem, Oregon. I've owned it 42 years. Describe your finances. I'm a retired contractor. My pension is $2,950 monthly. I had $230,000 in savings before $127,000 was stolen. I own my home outright valued around $455,000. The judge's brows rose. Stolen? Yes, Your Honor, by my daughter-in-law. Martin shot up. Your Honor, that accusation? Sit down, Mr. Caldwell, the judge said. She looked back at me. Do you understand why we're here? Yes. Bethany claims I'm incompetent because she wants control of my money. And do you believe you need a guardian? No, Your Honor. She studied me, then turned to Bethany. Mrs. Walsh, he appears lucid. Do you have evidence supporting your petition? Bethany opened her mouth, silent. Martin tried again. Your Honor, we have medical documentation. Documentation of what I said. 3 nights ago, Bethany gave me sedative-laced tea that paralyzed me. She staged a crisis to make me look incompetent. The courtroom froze. Judge Morrison's expression hardened. Ms. Bennett, I want to see that evidence. Now. Rachel Bennett stepped into the center of the courtroom, placed a folder before Judge Morrison, and began. Your Honor, I have 8 pieces of evidence proving Mr. Walsh was targeted for financial exploitation and attempted guardianship fraud. She presented them one by one. First, Dorothy Walsh's letter written 2.5 years before her death, warning Henry that Bethany cared only about what he and Christopher could give her. She doesn't love him. She loves what he can give her. Second, Bank of America security footage showing Bethany entering the branch 7 times over 6 months, withdrawing large sums using forged documents. Third, a signature analysis comparing Henry's authentic signature to the forged withdrawals. Sophisticated, Your Honor, but not perfect. Fourth, an IRS notice demanding $78,500 in unpaid taxes on income Henry never received because Bethany had stolen it. Fifth, investigator Gregory Stone's report documenting 3 weeks of observation showing no dementia, confusion, or incapacity. Mr. Walsh is sharper than most men half his age. Sixth, a medical timeline showing Henry was fully functional until Monday night, when he suddenly became paralyzed after drinking tea Bethany prepared. Seventh, Gregory's testimony that he'd been hired to document Henry's cognitive decline, but realized the symptoms he saw were chemically induced. That wasn't a stroke. It was sedation. Eighth, phone records proving Bethany had contacted multiple guardianship attorneys in the weeks before filing her petition, seeking one who wouldn't question her motives. When Rachel finished, the courtroom fell silent. Martin Caldwell didn't object. He didn't even move. Judge Morrison removed her glasses and faced Bethany. Mrs. Walsh, do you have anything to say? Bethany's hands shook. No sound came out. I didn't think so. The judge's voice was icy. The petition for guardianship is denied. I am referring this case to the Multnomah County District Attorney for criminal investigation charges, including financial elder abuse, identity theft fraud, and assault with intent to incapacitate. She nodded to Rachel. A protective order is effective immediately. Mrs. Walsh is prohibited from contacting Mr. Walsh or accessing his accounts. She struck the gavel. We're adjourned. By 3 that afternoon, I stood in my son Christopher's living room with Gregory and 2 police officers. Christopher sat on the couch, head in his hands, looking years older. Dad, he said through tears, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know she was... You knew enough, I said quietly. You knew I didn't want to move in. You knew I questioned the IRS letter, and you locked me in that room, Christopher. You locked the door and went to work. I thought you were sick, he sobbed. She told me you were confused. And you believed her over me? I stepped back. You're my son. I love you. But I can't have you in my life right now. Behind me, an officer spoke. Mrs. Walsh, you're under arrest for financial elder abuse, identity theft, and fraud. Bethany stood frozen as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. She looked at me terrified. I'd rather die alone than live as a prisoner, I said. I'm free? She was led outside. Christopher cried behind me. Dad, please don't leave. I paused at the doorway but didn't turn around. Goodbye, Christopher. Then I walked out, leaving the house and the wreckage behind. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. The legal system moves slowly. 6 months passed between Bethany's arrest and her sentencing. In September, I attended the hearing at the federal courthouse in Portland. The courtroom was full. Journalists, staff, strangers. Rachel sat beside me. Bethany sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed. The judge, a stern man in his 60s, reviewed the charges: financial elder abuse, identity theft, wire fraud, assault with intent to incapacitate. The evidence was overwhelming: bank records, footage, Gregory's testimony, Dorothy's letter. Mrs. Walsh, he said, voice cold. This was a calculated, prolonged attempt to exploit a vulnerable adult. You poisoned your father-in-law, forged his signature, stole over $127,000, and attempted to seize control of his life through fraudulent guardianship. He sentenced her to 10 years in federal prison, full restitution with interest, and no parole eligibility for 7 years. Bethany didn't look at me. She stared at the table, expression empty. I felt no anger, no satisfaction, only closure. 3 weeks later, Christopher's sentencing was held in the same courthouse. His charges were lighter accessory to financial exploitation and false imprisonment. He had taken a plea deal cooperating with investigators. The prosecutor acknowledged he'd been manipulated and unaware of the full extent of Bethany's crimes. The judge sentenced him to 3 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory counseling. When proceedings ended, Christopher turned toward me, tears streaming. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't reply. I simply walked out. He was my son, and I still loved him. But love doesn't restore trust. In late October, Christopher asked to meet. I agreed once. We met at a small Salem coffee shop on a rainy afternoon. He looked thinner, older. I sat across from him. Thanks for coming, he said quietly. I nodded. What do you want, Christopher? I want to apologize. Really apologize. I know I can't undo what happened. I'm in therapy. I moved out of that house. I'm trying to understand how she manipulated me, how I chose her over you. You did choose her, I said. My voice wasn't angry, just steady. You locked the door, Christopher. You knew I didn't want to be there. I thought you were sick. I thought? You thought what was convenient, I said. I can forgive weakness. I can forgive trusting the wrong person. But I can't forget. Forgiveness isn't the same as reconciliation. His eyes filled with tears. So, we're done. It means I need boundaries. You're not in my life right now. Maybe someday, but not now. Dad, healing means protecting myself. Right now, that means distance. I stood and placed a 20 on the table. I hope therapy helps you. Truly. But I can't be part of your recovery. I walked out without looking back. Driving home through the rain, the wipers beating steadily, I felt no guilt, only clarity. And clarity, I realized, was its own kind of freedom. 1 year after the night Bethany poisoned me, I stood in my new downtown Salem apartment and realized something. I was happy. The place was smaller than the home Dorothy and I once shared. 1 bedroom, a kitchen overlooking the park, hardwood floors glowing in the afternoon light. I'd sold the old house 6 months earlier. Too many memories, too many ghosts. This apartment was mine. New furniture, new routines, new life. The restitution, $127,000 plus interest, had been returned. I invested some, lived on some, and used $50,000 to start something Dorothy would have loved. The Dorothy Walsh Elder Protection Fund. It wasn't a large operation, just me, a part-time administrator and a pro bono lawyer, but in 1 year we'd helped 12 seniors who had been stolen from manipulated, or isolated by the people they trusted most. Last month, a 74-year-old woman named Margaret called. Her son had drained her pension for 3 years. The fund paid for a lawyer. 6 weeks later, she regained control of her accounts and secured a protective order. You saved my life, she told me. No, I said. You saved your own. I just gave you the tools. Dorothy would have been proud. I also started a blog, Invisible No More. I wrote about the poisoning, the trial, the aftermath, and what I'd learned: how to recognize elder abuse, how to set boundaries, how to ask for help without shame. Thousands of people read it. Many shared their own stories. Some reached out for guidance. I answered every message I could. Twice a month, I spoke at senior centers and community colleges. I told my story. I taught warning signs. I reminded people that aging wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. I wasn't invisible anymore. I had purpose. One evening, I sat at my desk with a mug of coffee and looked at Dorothy's photograph from our 40th anniversary. Silver hair, bright smile, her hand resting on mine. I did it, I whispered. Your warnings saved me, and now your name is helping others. I touched the frame. I miss you every day, but I'm okay now. So if you're reading this and you recognize yourself in my story, hear this. You are not invisible. You are not a burden. You are not too old to fight back. If someone is stealing from you or making you feel powerless, it is not your fault. You do not have to accept it. Age is not weakness. Age is experience. Age is wisdom. You have every right to protect yourself, to set boundaries, to say no, even to your own children. Trust your instincts. Ask for help. Call a lawyer, a friend, or the police. You are not alone. I spent 3 days paralyzed in a locked room because I trusted the wrong person. But I spent the next year rebuilding my life and helping others refuse to disappear. You can do the same. The sun set over Salem as I looked out the window. Joggers, families, couples filled the park below. My city, my home, my life. No one would take it from me again. I was free. I was strong. And finally I was visible. Looking back now, I see how close I came to disappearing. Not dying, disappearing. Becoming invisible in my own life while someone else held the pen. If you're listening to these grandpa stories, here's what I need you to understand. Don't be like me. Don't ignore the warning signs. Don't convince yourself that family would never hurt you. Don't stay silent when something feels wrong. The lesson I learned the hard way: trust is earned, not inherited. Even blood relatives can betray you, and asking for help isn't weakness, it's survival. Dorothy used to say God gives us instincts for a reason. I should have listened to mine sooner. I should have listened to her. But thanks to God's grace and a few good people who refused to look away, I got a second chance. This is a true story, every word of it. And if it sounds familiar, if you recognize your own life in mine, please don't wait like I did. Speak up. Call a lawyer. Call a friend. Call someone who will believe you. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. And you deserve to live your life on your terms, no matter how old you are. These grandpa stories aren't just for entertainment. They're real lessons from real lives. And this true story, it's my way of making sure what happened to me never happens to you. That's why I share these grandpa stories, to protect others. So tell me, have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you seen this happen to someone you love? Drop a comment below, share this story, subscribe to the channel. Let's make sure no one else has to fight this battle alone. You matter, and your voice deserves